Coming up this morning on Carolina This Week, we're going to hear from two candidates for public office, one running for Horry County Council, the other for U.S. Senate against Senator Tim Scott. Carolina This Week starts right now.
This is Carolina This Week. Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis.
Good morning. The 2014 political season is in full swing. This morning we're going to hear from two candidates, one for an Horry County Council seat. The other is running for Senate against U.S. Senator Tim Scott here in South Carolina, and that is Jill Bossi. And the unique thing about Jill Bossi is she's running in the American Party, the first Senate candidate that I know of from the American Party. So briefly, I want to know who you are, and I want to know a little bit more about the American Party and why you're running as an American Party candidate.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. I'm happy to be here. Well, a little bit about me. I am a business executive. I just recently left my job at the American Red Cross to run for the U.S. Senate because I do love my country, and I feel like it's an important thing that I need to do for my children and my grandchildren to prove that we can do something. The American Party has given me that opportunity because they believe in what I believe in: term limits, in ethical government, in transparency, and in working through the center and for the common good, and finding resolutions and solutions that can help move us forward. And so I found them through my interest in term limits, and one thing led to another, and here I am running for the U.S. Senate for the state of South Carolina, and I'm happy to be doing it.
I don't want to dwell too much on the American Party because I want to get to the issues like I talk with all candidates about, but I kind of want to set you up a little bit so people understand a little bit about where the American Party is coming from. And just one question, kind of maybe two parts to it. What from the American Party is going to appeal to Republicans? What from the American Party is going to appeal to Democrats?
Well, I think that it's the same, right? The American Party was started by a Republican and a Democrat. They had a great idea, which meant that both sides wanted to govern from the middle. There's more of us who are in the center. There's more of us who believe in common sense and the common good than there are in the extreme right or the extreme left of either party. And so therefore, the American Party really provides people with an outlet for their frustration and an outlet for their willingness to discuss the issues at hand. And it allows for us to have a good dialogue with one another. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's okay, because that's part of what democracy is all about. So I think that the American Party is a party that allows you to continue being a Democrat or allows you to continue to be a Republican, but it gives you some opportunities to look at candidates for who they are and what they stand for and what they can do to help move our country forward. And that's what I'm interested in doing.
The economy in South Carolina is improving like the national economy is doing right now. As a senator, what would you do to help continue economic growth in South Carolina and bring more jobs here for the people who don't have them and the people who we're trying to lure to our state to work here?
Absolutely. Business is critical to our economic improvement, to our global competitiveness, and everything that we need to do, including jobs. And jobs are absolutely critical for everyone, every American. And so I would be working with businesses. I come out of business. I understand what is the drivers behind business making a decision on where they're going to move, where they're going to locate. I would look to talk with companies like Boeing has relocated here and look to see how much more that they could bring to the state. But also, entrepreneurial spirit exists in America. And so what can we do and what can I do as a senator to help new businesses grow and incubate here in South Carolina? I believe that that's a big part of what we can do to increase our viability in our global economy.
This part of South Carolina, anyway, the Grand Strand PD area, is a small business mecca, and a lot of those small business owners just say, well, I'll tell you what the government can do. They can get out of our way.
I agree. And regulation has gone way too far. The government is in things that they don't need to be in. Taxation is a huge issue. For me, tax reform is absolutely where we need to go. We need to pay taxes. We need to figure out how to continue to fund all of the things that are good about our government. But at the same time, we need a straightforward, simplified approach to taxes so that businesses can figure out what they're going to be owing and individuals can figure out what they're going to be owing without a lot of regulation that's standing in the middle and making it confusing for everybody.
Let's talk a little bit about some international policy real quick. There's a lot of things happening in the world right now. You have the situation in Syria. You have troops on the ground in Afghanistan. You have this new dare we say, Cold War, something happening in Russia over Ukraine. What do you think is the most pressing issue internationally facing America? And from the Senate, how would you want to steer the course?
Well, the issues of conflict are always difficult. I have 3 of my children have served in the U.S. military. I have a son who was in the Air Force, a daughter who was in the Army, and I have a son who's still an active duty Marine. So for me, it's very important to make sure that we are considered and careful about the decisions we make when it comes to any kind of military action. But at the same time, I believe that the U.S. economy and business is what's really going to drive the future. If we've got a good global economy going, and if we've got good trading partners, and we're focused on bringing everybody forward, then those kinds of issues that pop up will be ones that we can face together with our global partners and come to resolutions that we can find together that will solve those problems for the entire globe very quickly.
Another issue that I think I ask every county candidate about, every city candidate, state candidate, what have you. Well, jobs being number one. We talked about that. Infrastructure is another big one. In this area, there's a lot of talk about I-73. How do we get funding from I-73 out of Washington?
Right.
How do we get funding for I-73 out of Washington?
I think that you're absolutely right. Jobs are important, and infrastructure brings jobs. And getting I-73 moving into this area is absolutely critical. Having the right pathways to progress are what we need. I know that when we come from the upstate to come down here to the Myrtle Beach area, it's very frustrating to not have an interstate that comes all the way through. And if we want to grow tourism along the South Carolina coast, which is so beautiful, and we should have more people coming, that we need to have a way for them to get here. So I would be working with my colleagues in the Senate and in the Congress to work through the issues of what does it mean to be able to get funding for building projects, not just here in South Carolina, but all over the country, because our bridges are crumbling, our roads have got potholes. We need to do things that are going to improve life for every American.
Any third party, any new party is going to have a tough time against the incumbent. In this election, polls have shown any challenger is going to face a difficult time against sitting Senator Tim Scott, who used to be this area's congressman.
Right.
What do you do? How are you going to break through, and why should I vote for you?
Well, I think the first thing is I believe in what our founding fathers believed in, and they didn't want to be in Congress forever. They knew that it was a job that they needed to go and do on behalf of their country, and then they went home. And I want to see term limits enacted, and I think it's important for the entire Congress to have term limits. That's something that the American Party and I offer to the voting public. I think what's also important is that in business, it's important to continue to change and to grow and to move forward. And so that's something that I can bring to this role, which is that of a change agent who's coming from the outside and bringing ideas and enthusiasm and energy to be looking at the real issues that we're dealing with today, not simply worrying about getting reelected. That's not going to be my focus. My focus is going to be on the voters and the state and what we need to do to move our nation forward. I think the third-party issue is a real one. There's Duverger's law that looks at the two-party issue. There's the voter apathy that we're dealing with. But I think that that's what we're also trying to do. We're trying to stimulate the voters' interest in getting back involved in their country. Afghan is going to their presidential elections. There's going to be over 75% of the Afghan population that's going to be voting in the presidential elections. And they're dealing with things like bombs and roadside shootings, et cetera. America can come to the polls, but we're at only a little over 50%. So I hope that my candidacy in South Carolina will not only stimulate all voters, but specifically women and young people to come to the polls and start to interact again in the democratic process. South Carolina ranks 49th or 50th in terms of sending women to Congress. I want to change that. I want to get us up in front. South Carolina's got a great history. We've led the way in many ways, and I want us to lead the way again by looking at my candidacy for the Senate and by looking at the American Party.
All right, Jill Bossi, American Party candidate for U.S. Senate running against Tim Scott. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you.
All right, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk to a candidate for Horry County Council. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Carolina This Week. We've been talking to a lot of candidates for Horry County Council. Candace Howell threw her hat in the ring. She's running for the District 8 seat. Now, District 8 covers lots of parts of Conway and also up into the tip of Carolina for us, and just really this kind of central part of Horry County. Johnny Vought's also running for the seat. He's been here, as is Daniel Cochran, who's also been in here. So here's our last candidate for the June primary for Horry County Council. Candace.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm really excited about the race. It's a fantastic district to live in. We live in such a great county. I'm very excited. A lot of people are saying, why? Why are you throwing your hat in? And I want people to know that I care about this community, and that's why. But even deeper than that, I think I bring a new perspective. I think that it's time for the next generation of change. Not saying that all generations don't matter. It's saying that that's exactly what matters, is that my generation needs to step up to the plate and start taking these leadership roles and being involved in the issues that are taking place in our community, that are important to our retirees, to the folks that are working, to the parents, and to those kids that we're raising here in this community.
Just for people who don't know you, and if you watch WPDE a lot, you might know Candace. She was with us a long time ago. Who are you?
Well, I moved to this community 12 years ago, and I fell in love with it, which is why I stayed. I met my husband here, who is a firefighter for Horry County Fire Rescue. Over the years, I've worked here at WPDE and had the opportunity to do that. I've also worked with Lakewood Camping Resort. I was their marketing director, so I saw the tourism side. I worked with Coastal Uncorked and saw the hospitality side. And then I worked with the Myrtle Beach Regional EDC and loved it. Job creation, so important. It's part of why I'm doing this. And now I'm with Horry Georgetown Tech as the academic chair for the business department.
Let's start off talking about jobs. We've seen all types of jobs announced in Horry County, from the gun manufacturers to hopefully to lure some boat builders, and of course tourism is always going to remain king down here. What should we be doing to lure jobs to Horry County, specifically in your district, which is really kind of the heart of Horry County?
Well, I will tell you this, the EDC is on the right track right now. That was the first step, is making sure that they had the tools that they need to get out there, and the incentives, really, because if we're not on the playing field, we're not going to get these jobs from other communities. I was on the ground floor of that with Brad Lofton and the team, and what a great team. And we saw that with PTR Industries, Frontier Communications expanding. My district has that manufacturing corridor that's so important in Horry County with Met Glass and some of these other organizations. We need to diversify. It needs to be lots of different types of jobs. When Brad's out there and the EDC is out there marketing, they're marketing for not just manufacturing, but call centers. We have ITAP as a great resource. We need more of that. We need to continue to diversify, because that's what's going to affect the economy here. We need to stay active in that conversation. Our council is getting out there, getting involved with these potential employers as they come. And that's what we need to continue to do, and I will be a voice for that change on council.
You can't really live in your district and not have to drive Highway 501. That gets us into infrastructure. What would you do to improve infrastructure in Horry County?
Well, we need to continue to do what we're doing right now, which is widen those roadways. But we need a long-range plan. We are doing great things with the expansion of 31. I know that's long overdue, and widening 501, but looking at, we're going to continue to grow. We're busting at the seams right now. Infrastructure is a major hot-button issue for me, and you're right. I come off Legends Drive right there and turn left or right to go into town or go out to Conway, and it is an issue, but that widening of the roads is a start. We need to stay on that track, keep working as a cohesive unit to think about, not right now, but 10 and 20 years from now, and create some plans for that.
Would you be instrumental in keeping pressure on the federal government and the state government to get I-73 completed?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked that, because it ties back to what we were talking about with economic development. Those companies, if we're going to recruit them, we have to have an interstate. Many of them are within 20 miles, many major corporations like that. We want here to have those big jobs. They want that interstate within 20 miles of wherever they're going to locate. That is a selling point for us, for jobs, but also for hurricane evacuation and other major issues for our community. We need that corridor, and I will continue to champion that absolutely on the local level.
Now let's get to a hyper-local issue, beach tents. And
Yes.
really just to see where you stand on something like this, because you won't only be voting for issues that happen in your district, but also in other districts, particularly District 5, District 2, those that run along the coast. What do you think about a beach tent ban?
Well, you know, I was there for the council meetings to see how things were voted on. I paid very close attention to what was happening in other municipalities that tie into the county as well. Yeah, I understand. I'm a mom of two. I didn't say that when you asked me about me. I have two kids. We go to the beach. It's important to have that shelter out there. We are in particular folks that carry umbrellas. But if we were to carry a beach tent, I would like to have the opportunity. However, in those meetings, the due diligence that was done from law enforcement to say that there were 3,800 calls for public safety, averaging 15 minutes apiece. That's a dangerous situation and a lot of time being eaten up. I want my public safety to be able to get to me. What I would have done if I had been up on council is made sure due diligence was done, which I believe that it was. And I would have continued to listen to the residents, both sides of the coin, and that's who I'm going to be up there if elected. I'm going to be someone who's going to listen, not just to my district, but all of Horry County, and make sure that we can have a conduit for a voice up there from the voters.
Talking about council itself now, council itself tends to get along and they move and they develop a consensus and then they vote on an issue, then they tackle an issue. How do you see yourself fitting in on council? Would you work against the grain, do you think? Or do you think you could fit into that group and work with the group? What do you think about you? Who would you be on council?
I'm a communicator and a listener, so I believe that we do have a cohesive unit that's up there. They've done some really great things over the last 10 years or so. I think that I would be part of the group that would want to find a common resolution that's best for our community. If it's an issue, though, that I really feel strongly about, do I have to go against the grain? You know, I'd really have to take that into consideration issue by issue. But I think you'd find that I'm someone who's going to try to bring the group back together for a common goal and really try to find common ground. So I wouldn't say that I'm normally the type of person to go against the grain, but you have to do what's right at the time for the issue.
All right. Well, why should somebody vote for you?
Well, I think that if you're going to vote on June 10th, you should vote for me because I represent change in Horry County and a good change. I really truly believe that our listeners or our voters have to have a voice. We need to listen to them, and I'm going to be that person up there that's going to listen and get out there. If someone calls me and says, I've got this issue, I want to go see them and see the issue myself if I can. I'm going to be someone up there that's going to bring a new perspective. We have some great gentlemen that are up there right now, but we need to get a gal up there who can bring a different perspective, and I do really believe that I represent that change.
All right, you're one of two gals running. Liz Gillen's running for another seat. Hope to have her on the show down the road. Candace Howell, candidate for District 8. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Tim. I appreciate it.
Stay with us when we come back, find out how you can help some hungry kids get all they need to eat when they're away from school. We'll be right back.